Hello friends, welcome back. In this video, I will explain you about the Azure Storage, especially the Azure Blob Storage. This is also part of the AZ-204 developing solution for Microsoft Azure certification. So I will be covering a little bit detail about certain concept of this Azure Blob Storage and exam perspective as well. Eventually, we will use this storage account for our e-commerce web application to store the product images and a lot many things. So without delay, come let's get started. So whether you are studying for AZ-204 certification or not doesn't matter, but this blob storage is one of the important concept in the Azure cloud, and this is widely used as well. Now, in terms of exam perspective, if you look at this under the section developed for Azure Storage, this blob storage itself will cover almost 10% at least. There are a lot many concepts to cover, but we will go step by step. In this video, we will just talk about Azure Blob Storage and Portal and few more important concepts. So let's dive in. So Azure's Blob Storage overview. First of all, we should understand why this has been created. So in order to store the unstructured data like text files, video, images, log file, VHT disk, and all of those things, right? So these can be stored in Azure Storage, and that's why they call it as Azure Blob Storage. So that's the reason for this blob storage. Now, the important thing, right? When you store it, whether how you store, how you retrieve, all of those is accessible via REST API over HTTP and HTTPS protocol. So in order to get something or to store something, update, delete, all of those actions that you can perform in Portal, you can also perform via API, REST APIs. So that is what the pictorial representation, that is what this diagram shows about. And under this one can be used from Portal, PowerShell, or Azure CLI. Now, not only that, since its overview, this Azure Storage client library is available, and right now there are 4 libraries for .NET, Java, Python, and Node.js. If you are using any one of those, then this can be absolutely used for your application. Now, before we dive into the Portal, let's understand few important things, right? And then it will be easy for you to understand when we create it in Portal. So now let's understand the storage account, containers, and blobs. First of all, we will be creating a storage account, and the storage account will have its unique name. The name has to be unique because it is alright. So now let's understand the storage account, containers, and blob before we dive into the Portal and create it. So first of all, we will be creating a storage account. Now the storage account name has to be unique across the storage account, whether everything is yours or not. The storage account name has to be unique because eventually if you look at down, that is what will eventually form a unique URL. So in our case, Learn Smart Coding is the storage account name. Then the URL will be formed as learnsmartcoding.blob.core.windows.net. That will be the base URL for accessing the storage account. Now it also has 3 to 24 characters long. It has to be all lowercase and numbered, all of those criteria, right? We will see when we try to create it. Now, once you create, what will happen? There is something called blob containers. You will have containers that you can create, and then the containers will be internally having the blobs. Okay, containers, think of it as a folder, and then anything that you put inside the folder will be like a blob. So it could be a JPEG file, MP3 file, or any file you can name it. So now, if you look at down, this is how the URL will be formed. So our base URL followed by the container name slash followed by the folder name slash the particular file. And if you say just container name $comp is equal to list, it will just list down all the directories and everything inside the particular container. Now, beauty is you can actually create this using Portal and also using the CLI command that you see here, or using the PowerShell command. So in exam perspective, you should also understand how to use these commands. You can use it through the PowerShell or the Cloud Shell from the Portal itself. I will explain you when we go there. Now, the next important thing, actually the blob storage can be accessed and in a different form. So if the blob is like private, then you can access through the shared access signature or the storage account key. And if anything it's inside the blob, you can still use the Azure service using the Azure Active Directory. And there's another way also that you can make it as anonymous, like a public read access, so that's also can be used. So these are the 4 different types. And actually the blob types, so we were talking about blobs, right? So blob itself has 3 types. One is the blob, one is the blob, second was the append blob, third one is the page blob. So what is the difference between these 3? Blobs are suitable for most of the data types. So they are divided into blocks and each block can be uploaded independently. In our case, it could be an image, it could be a PDF file or anything. And page blob is mainly meant for, like, commonly used for the hardware, the virtual hard disk, which is also called VHD storage. Okay, so that the read and write operations are random. So page blob is optimized for random read and write operations. So it's also commonly used for the virtual hard disk, also called as VHD storage. Now here it is organized into pages. Operations can be performed on a range of pages. The last one is the append blob. See, for the append blob, it is mainly designed for appending operation. For example, for logs. So you keep writing logs at the end of the file. So that's why this append blob is mainly used. Now there is something called storage account kinds, right? There are, when the Azure initially came, there was just a blob storage, and then they made it as a general purpose v1. Now currently it is general purpose v2. So this is what the difference is. Now they are forcing the legacy one, which is called just the blob storage or the general purpose v1, to be upgraded into the general purpose v2, and it is cannot be reverted. This operation cannot be reverted, but the general purpose v2 is the one which supports a lot many things over the legacy one. And if you try to create legacy one these days, it won't even allow you to create legacy one. So only the storage v2 we will be creating it. And this is what the difference. There are 2 major performance difference. One is the standard performance, one is the premium performance. We'll be using the standard in our demo, but basically standard performance are the magnetic drives, and for the solid state drives, that's called premium performance. Of course, premium will always come for a price. So generally organization will use, but we don't need to use it. But this is what the difference is. Also, now we will talk about the replication strategy. When you create the storage account in the portal, you will come across these regions. There is something called locally redundant storage. So in a region means in a particular country or a region, there'll be data centers, right? So they will make a copy in the same data centers. That's called locally redundant storage. And there's something called zone redundant storage that doesn't support in all region, like you see here, but that's based on the zone they will create the replication. Now there's something called geo redundant storage and geo zone redundant storage, and the difference is basically you'll have a primary region and a secondary region. They will copy the primary region content over the secondary region. You will not even realize, but that's going to happen asynchronously, so that if anything happens to the primary region, the secondary region will kick in and you'll still see the data coming up. You will not lose your data. So that's why this replication, but based on how you choose, the cost will differ. And this is how the URL will also look. It's going to be the storage named as secondary.blob.core.windows.net. Again, when we talk about this replication strategy, based on which version you have, like a general purpose v2 will support everything, legacy will support only these things, but this is only for the information. You're not going to use legacy these days, but if you're looking for the certification, you should also understand what is supported on what. Okay, so for the premium performance, only LRS and ZRS is supported. Alright, it's time for demo. In case I've missed anything, I will cover it when we go through the creation process. Okay, so for this, you need, as usual, you need to be able to log into the portal.azure.com. I have logged in, and here you can actually come and search storage account. Because I've searched several times, storage account is already coming as a recent service, so I'm going to click on it. And right now I do not have any storage account. I'm going to click on create a storage account, and then it's going to give me this the overview blade where I have to fill up all of those things. The first one is the subscription, the second one is a resource group. So in this case, I'm going to use my existing resource group, so we can reuse this for our e-commerce application. Now I chose it, You can choose it, or you can have your separate resource groups, so that's also fine. And then here comes the unique name. So let's say learn smart coding, and if everything is good, when I tab out, it should give me a tick mark. I think it should be good. Learn smart coding, I've created it. And then the region is my closest region. I'm going to choose the standard. I don't want to choose this premium. The moment you choose premium, you will be able to choose, see, this is what we saw, the replication strategy. Only these two are available, right? And you can choose what kind of blobs that you're using. We'll go with the premium. We'll go with the locally redundant. We don't need even the geo redundant, right? Make read access, we don't need it for this, for just for demo purpose. All right, so the next one is the advanced. In the advanced, under the security, there are a couple of things that you need to carefully review it. If you enable this, then only the HTTPS protocol is supported. HTTP is actually not good to go because it doesn't have any security in this layer. So we will enable this so that only any calls that will come through HTTPS. Now, enabling access to individual container. Okay, so right now we are saying we are not allowing the anonymous access for any containers. Let's leave it like this, and I will show you later where to go and change it. Okay, now enable storage account key. So we are going to check this, and then we will leave all the remaining things as default. You can see the TLS, and then this one is like it's in preview state as of this 2024 recording, January. This is talking about the perimeter scope of the copy operation. So this is for the Azure file copies. They're asking where to where, like it's in preview state, it's not even general availability. So they're talking about some options of who can copy from which location to which account they can copy. So we will leave it as the default. And then access protocol, so we don't need to talk about or do anything. This is different. So in order to even enable this has to be enabled. If you enable this, then you can talk about this. SAS file transfer protocol is supported. You can just enable these things, but we're not going to do any of those things. So I'm going to disable it. Access protocol, I'm going to disable it. And then blob storage. See, by default, there's something called access there, and that's called hot. Hot means like frequently accessed data. Okay, so it will be ready for you to access, so that the latency will be very less. So we will make it as hot because we need to access our data frequently. Okay, cool and archive, we will talk about those more in a different video. So for now, default is hot. And then we don't need to enable this because this is more than 100 terabyte. 100 terabyte of data, we're not going to push anything, so we don't need to enable this. This comes under the file share. So next one is networking. For the networking, I'm telling it has to be enabled from everywhere. And then I'm going to use the Microsoft network routing. Data protection. So our data protection also, I will leave it with the default values. Basically, it's talk about the soft delete for the blobs, and then enable for the, whenever you delete a blob or container, it's all talking about how many days it has to be retained before it is completely deleted. That's called soft delete. Okay, so we will cover this recovery option in a different video as part of AZ-204, but for simplicity, you can just go with whatever is by default, and then we don't need to do the tracking. Be careful with this. Tracking is basically, it will make copies of every time that you change on a blob, which means if same file is uploaded again and again, it will actually maintain the blob, which means it will have its storage used, and then which means eventually you're going to indirectly pay money for all what you have stored. So if you come to calculator, in case if you want to see the price of the storage account, you come to this calculator and click on search for the storage account, click on storage account, and then you can play around with this number. So I just did everything as 1 gigabyte, not more than that, and the read operation, write operation, the total cost is coming just per month just 0.20 cents, which is very cheap comparatively. So I will not be using more than that, so this is good for me. Alright, so under the encryption, there are two things. One is Microsoft managed keys, the other one is the customer managed key. Generally in organization, customer managed keys will be also used based on what data is stored. So in case customer decides their data has to be protected based on the key that they have, they can choose to have this. But remember, based on what we choose cannot be changed later. I will leave it as Microsoft managed key because we're not organization. It's just for the demo purpose and it's simple personal use. So I will leave it the way it is with the defaults. The next one is the tag. I'm going to name it as e-commerce and then just a tag name, a value called product storage. So I'm going to name it as e-commerce and value as product storage so that I can identify later how much it has been used. I'll go to review. Everything looks good. I will hit on create, deployment initiated, and in few seconds the deployment will be done. Alright, so let's click on go to resource. This is what you will see. Now this is the storage account. Under the storage account there is nothing created, but under storage data, like the data storage, you can see 4 options: containers, file shares, queue, and table. In this video, we will concentrate only on the containers and the blobs. We will see all of these things in a separate videos because that itself will cover little more time for us. Alright, so now if you look at this, you have all the details shown here, and then let's go to containers. And if you go to containers, there is no containers right now except this log. So I will create a container. You should notice that when you create a containers, let's say I create a container called uploads, and by default it is marked as private. You cannot use, like for example, you cannot you can actually upload something, but you cannot be using this publicly. So let's first try to upload something. I clicked and I selected a PNG file. I'm going to click on upload. When I go here, I can take this URL and I can go and hit the URL. But the moment I hit the URL, you see this, our base URL came. Under that, it is the container followed by the direct file that we have. Okay, but the reason why it is not showing us the data, because it's private. You cannot use this private. There's something called generate SAS shared access signature. This is only for the understanding. The moment you choose the shared access signature, you can choose the account key, account policy, the permissions, like permissions will be read, write, create, what you can do, what kind of permissions you're giving for this, right? And then at what time to what time, all of those things. With this given thing, if I generate SAS token, it will give you the complete URL, or you can even copy this. The moment you copy this, you come here, put a question mark, and then followed by the permissions. Now I'm able to see the image with the permission, right? So if you look at the permission, it basically says it's a read, and then at what time to what time, all of the whatever you chose here is what is here. But I don't want this to be a private. These images are nothing to do, and in case we have to use this for our product e-commerce, wherein the products needs to be like a public image, anyone can come to website. We don't need to generate the SAS token for it, right? How do I change this private to public? It's easy. Alright, you come over to the storage account and scroll down all the way through. Under the security and networking, there's something called access key. Alright, so in order to change that, what you have to do is come to the storage account, scroll down to the left side. Under the settings, there's something called configuration. If you remember, by default we did not check the checkbox, that's why it is disabled. But we can come here and choose enable and click on save. The moment you click on save, you can come to the overview, go to the containers, click on this, and you can actually go back. So you can choose this container and say change the access level. Now you can choose the access level from private to any of these things. The difference between this and this, right? If you choose blob, all the blobs under this container is anonymous, and if you choose containers, all the containers and inside everything is going to be anonymous. But let's choose as blob, and I say okay, everything is done. If I come here and remove the permissions that we were using it, see, I'm still able to download the image because our container is now public accessible. It's a read only and public access. Okay, so that's the difference, and this is how we use. And now with this as a base, we will use the next video and see how you can actually upload the images or anything from your .NET Core Web API to this container, and we'll be using .NET Core 8 for that. So I will see you in the next video. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!